Hello, everyone. Welcome to our last podcast of the year 2024, where we're looking at the anime films that airing or released for the last year or this year, to say. So those titles are Blue Giant, The Boy and the Heron, and Look Back. So as usual, it's me, Mario, and with me here is Whooper.
Hello, I'm here as a fact checker, here to
All right.
inform you that actually The Boy and the Heron and Blue Giant both released last year.
All right.
But I think subtitles did not appear for um, The Boy and the Heron, at least not like online, until early
Hmm,
2024. Blue Giant, though, subs have been out at least, since 2023. But
I see.
they're all recent, you know?
Yep. It's a time to check back of all these, like really well known anime films. So yeah, we picked the title, especially Look Back that just released by the time that we decided to pick these movies.
Right. Yeah, and also the Mononoke film, the first,
Yeah.
and I think is there going to be a trio of Mononoke films? Is that the current word out
Uh,
there?
all right. I'm not really sure actually. Is that gonna be what happening?
Yeah, I
That's
I think
interesting.
that's what I read most recently, is that it's not going to be just the one. It's they're keeping the franchise alive. I think last year we had a discussion about films, series like Princess Principal and Girls in Panzer, and other
Yeah.
franchises that put out like regular or semi-regular installments, theatrical
Mm.
releases to keep it in people's consciousness, and to have a little money coming in on a consistent basis. I guess they're doing that with Mononoke, which is kind of, I mean, I guess I welcome it because Mononoke is,
Mm.
and even if it's not one of my favorite anime from that time period, it's certainly a singular, a very interesting one.
Yeah.
Um, but it's a little strange that that's what Twin Engine picked. I think they're part of the production committee for those films because I don't know. I mean, maybe a lot of people do remember it fondly. I guess it would be the Japanese market that they would consider first and foremost. So maybe it's real. People really love it. I don't know. In any case, that was I guess an option because it dropped online just days before we recorded this.
Mm.
Um, but we decided to go with these three as they're all,
Yeah.
I don't know, reasonably high profile films, ones that people
Yeah.
might be interested in hearing us talk about. Though I guess that's up to you if you're listening.
Yeah. Yep, they have been really well received. I agree, and even like one of them is the Swan Song again, for Ghibli, and they took was the Oscar.
It did, yeah. It did win
Yeah.
Best Animated Feature. That's right. But you know what? I actually have a theory
Mhm.
that it is not Miyazaki's final film, and that theory is not based solely on reports that he's returned to the studio and is working on a new film, which is true. But
Yeah.
I have a theory that's actually based on some of the material in The Boy and the Heron that he has another film coming out.
Right. All right. I guess we can talk more specifically about that when we get into the Boy and Heron, and we can start it now if you want to.
I mean, which one would you prefer to start with, since you
Hmm.
introduced us?
All right. I actually want to start with either Blue Giant and Look Back rather than the Boy and the Heron. Just because.
Okay.
So I guess let's go with Blue Giant since it's like the oldest release out of the three. So we go by the release order.
Okay. Well, if we go by release order, then Look Back will be last.
Yeah, yeah,
But that,
that's
I
so
mean,
good
that
to me.
that works for me. Yeah. So Blue Giant. If any of you are super fans of ours, you may also follow our cinema podcast, which we ran concurrently with this one a couple years ago, and then we
Mm,
decided to take a break from it. Um, but we did come back and give our top 10 films of 2023.
yep.
I guess that was, how long ago was that? If it's November now, August would have been 3 months ago. I guess we did that 3 months ago. And Blue Giant was on my list for my 10 favorite films. be they
Yep.
live action, animated, whatever.
Yep.
So now I've seen it a second time in preparation for this discussion. And Mario, I assume that it was your first time watching it when you messaged me about it just a few days ago.
Yep. That's correct.
All right, well, what did you think?
Oh, right. I really enjoy that. I think it's based firstly on the manga, and the
Yeah,
manga is still ongoing at this point, and they assign 10 volumes. So I think it's just like a tremendous task from the filmmaker in order to like condense and try to adapt it into like future films. And I think the way they approach it is not like right at the beginning or toward the end, but right in the specific point of like of this band journeys. And I do think that they really do the job.
yeah. I I should mention, I guess, that even though I was a big fan of this film, I don't know much about the manga. I mean, I know it has
Yep.
won many awards, and you mentioned
Mm.
10 volumes as a particular number.
Yep.
Um, that was the original Blue Giant manga, which did conclude with 10 volumes. But then there have been sequels:
Oh,
Blue Giant
damn.
Supreme, Blue Giant Explorer, Blue Giant
Damn.
Momentum. So these are all manga series, that are sequels to Blue Giant of roughly equivalent length.
Right.
So
Okay.
Blue Giant is ongoing, in a manner of speaking, but as far as the manga bearing that exact title, it finished. And I assume the film adapted those 10 volumes in their entirety.
Okay.
I'm, skipping over a bunch of stuff, I'm
I
sure, because the film is
I
only 2 hours.
yeah. I think it's skipping the beginning of our main characters dies, beginning with Chas.
You think so? I mean,
I think so.
well,
I think so.
okay, I can only speculate, but I think it kind of makes sense to have him journeying to Tokyo as the
If
starting point.
All right. One of the reason why is I had to speculate is if you read at the synopsis in Wikipedia, it just all the beginnings. It just all the stuff that happened even way before the movie kicks in.
Okay, so it's about like his high school days, maybe.
Yeah, but when he first introduced to chess and when he's like get trained by that teacher, like the one of the uh, the old guys who appears. I think it's the video uh, sort of documentary style.
Right. You also see him in the crowd during their performance at
Yep,
So Blue at the end, the jazz
yep,
club.
yep.
Um, so since you've brought that up, how did you like that framing device? I guess with the documentary style talking head kind of shots of not only his jazz teacher but also Tanada or Shunji, depending on what name you're
Yep.
calling him, and also the woman who owned the jazz bar where they
Yep.
practiced. What was her name again? Akiko.
I kind of enjoy that. It's have like a look back feel, kind of deep fun, and but when I hear in the first like documentary style like that, I was initially thought that one of the characters is about to pass away
Yeah,
because it's kind of have the nostalgia into it.
yeah. A
That
lot of documentaries are made about people who have died as a way of
yeah,
like, commemorating or remembering
prim-
their
yeah,
presence and what they achieved before they passed on. So I could definitely see why your mind would go in that direction right away. And someone
especially
almost
yeah,
dies
yeah.
in this film.
Especially at one point we can see head on that one of the characters have been hit by the car.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
yeah, that was quite
I'm
brutal.
glad. Yeah, I'm glad that that didn't happen. Spoiler alert. And I still don't. All right, I get we can start right at the end here now that I don't quite understand why both the two members so we go by first name here, right? Dai and Yukinori decided that this is their last performance, just last performance. Is that just because Yukinori been in church, or is that just they
Well,
think that it's time for them to move on?
here's a question for you. Did you watch
Yep,
the post-credit scene?
I did.
You did,
Uh,
okay. Then you
because
know that the location from which Dai calls Yukinori is
yep,
like an
they
airport, I
plan
think.
to go to Germany. I think.
Oh, really?
Yep,
Was it specified where he was going?
yep. I think there's like a really quick shot of like Munich as like the destination. Is where
Oh,
he going.
interesting. Good eye.
Yep, yep.
I did not catch that,
So
despite having seen this film twice. Yeah, so that's the reason I think is that if you, I didn't catch where he was going, but if he's going to Munich, if he's going to Germany, then he probably had arranged to go overseas even before
I
this
see.
performance at So Blue.
I see. That kind of makes sense then. That he decided to push it on despite knowing that Yukinori is not gonna make it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that kind of makes sense in yeah, when we think about it.
Now there's also in terms of Dai leaving them behind, his stated goal is to be the best jazz musician in the world. So there's
Yep.
that. But there's also the conversation that the three guys. What does this conversation happen when it's just Dai and Yukinori under the bridge after
Where
Dai has seen him perform with a couple other college guys? Or does
yeah.
this the conversation I'm talking about is when Yukinori brings up the fact that unlike rock bands who tend to stay together as a part of their image, jazz musicians jump in and out of bands all the time.
All right. I think that conversation is between Dai and Sunji, where Yukinori is expressed doubt uh, by of his own talent. So that he just basically tell Dai and Sunji that one of the guy from So Blue come to our performance live performance, and they like you guys. Uh, they didn't like me at all, and I'm shit. They told me that I'm shit, and like I think that it's true, and I just kind of like, if you think that's true, there's nothing we can talk about, and he
Right.
kind of about to leave, and Suji was just like, you guys are my bad. I just want to play with you guys, so like just tackle the problem altogether. And that's when I just, I think, kind of say to Suji that like chess bands members, they just kind of come and goes, and all that.
I do remember that scene containing that conversation, but that's the second time that the film brings it up.
All right.
There's a
Yep.
because Yukinori says it, in kind of blasé fashion earlier in the film. He's
Yep.
probably around the time when the three of them are exploring the possibility of becoming a band, and Yukinori is very resistant to Shunji joining, of course, because he's a complete amateur, who, although he can
Mm.
keep time, cannot really handle
Yep.
the kick and the snare and the hat and the crashes all at once. Like he's not a drummer yet.
Yep.
And Yukinori's like that. This is why I was wondering whether he had only expressed it to Dai before Shunji was even in the picture. But yeah, the film does bring that
Mm.
up twice. That idea that jazz
Yep.
players will hop into groups and play for a little while together, only to hop out and go in a
Yep.
different direction or with different people or to pursue a different style because there's a bunch of
Yep.
different styles of jazz.
Mm.
Um,
So,
So that
yep.
the film bringing that up does kind of foreshadow Dai leaving, an answer to the
Mm.
question of like why would he leave jazz the group.
Yep. Yep.
But there's also, even beyond that, there is another piece of foreshadowing, and it's very specific to the history of jazz musicians, and
Mm-hmm.
that is when Dai first goes to Take Two, the jazz bar run by Akiko,
Yep.
um, and there's no performance happening there as he had hoped, but she does have a huge record collection, and she puts on a record by Sonny Stitt, and he recognizes Sonny Stitt rather than Sonny Rollins. It's Sonny Stitt, and he knows immediately who it is, and she's surprised. The reason that works as foreshadowing that Dai is eventually going to leave his group is because in real life, Sonny Stitt was a saxophonist who was considered a lone wolf. He never
Hmm.
committed to one group, despite putting out 100 albums. He
Hmm.
never had like the same players around him. He was always in different bands. So the film like drawing a connection kind of between Dai and Sonny Stitt, whose music he recognizes right away, foreshadows that he himself is a lone wolf and he won't stay with the characters in this film forever.
Hmm. Very interesting. Very good observation there as well.
I know a little about
All right.
jazz. Um,
Yeah.
Real jazz fans would be able to expose my lack of knowledge right away, but I think I've listened to more jazz than the average, person my
Yeah.
age, let's say.
Yeah.
That's part of why I like this film a lot.
And I really like many of the film decisions. Like story wise, I think it's kind of skip as well, skip a bit there here and there. We got I think the whole film is like the duration of like more than a year or even I'm not sure like the passage of time here like is that like 6 months or a year and a half, but they never skip on the jazz performances, and that is what makes this film so great.
I remember that when Dai and Yukinori meet each other for the first time,
Yeah.
and they're in the bathroom, and there's the whole gag about, oh, whoa, whoa, it's huge. And what he was actually talking about was the
Ah.
callus on Dai's thumb. But then later, when they're talking under the bridge with their canned coffee, and Dai gives his name, Dai Miyamoto, which I think is like a very grandiose name in Japanese, like meaning Dai, meaning like big
Yeah.
or like powerful, something like that. Then Yukinori says, "Oh yeah, a name befitting your giant penis." So he actually was perhaps referring to the size of his dick
Ah.
earlier when he said, "Whoa, it's huge." That's very funny to me that the film doubles back to
Yeah.
imply maybe that's what he was talking about. Who knows? Um, I lost my train of thought. Why was I bringing up that
Yeah.
conversation?
Maybe you know about the how long they have been together.
Right. They're both 18 when they introduce
Yep.
themselves, reintroduce themselves, I guess, under the bridge. They say they're both 18 years old, and their
Yep.
stated goal is to play at So Blue while they're still teenagers. So I'm thinking, because he goes to Tokyo, Dai goes to Tokyo right after he graduates high school. He's like newly turned 18, and the
Hmm.
film probably ends when they're like deep into their you know 20th
All
year,
right.
let's say, when they're 19, about to turn 20, something like that.
I.
Because 18
All right.
months is brought up as a time period at some point in here.
All right. Yep. I do remember the 1 year and a half mark, and that's come from Sunji interview when he said that the year and a half that we've been staying together as a band and I play, like I get a chance to play against Dai is like the best time ever for me and
Right,
something along that line. So I do remember the 18 months mark.
right. Yeah, now that you say that, I also remember that's where it came in. And I really like that the position of his talking head scene specifically, Shunji's, because it comes right after a scene where he's eating like a beef bowl and a bunch of gyoza and like slurping down a big bowl of soup
Yep.
in a restaurant. This is after their first ever gig at I guess a venue or a restaurant slash venue where the
Oh.
three of them play together for the first time, and that
Yep.
salary man with the red nose comes,
Yep. Yep.
the one who got the flyer from Dai in an earlier scene. So it's just
Yep.
like a couple regular customers, um, and an elderly gentleman who is involved in the jazz world somehow, and then
Yep.
the red nose salary man. It's just the four of them in the audience.
Yep. Yeah.
and they play together, and of course the two more experienced musicians are amazing, and Dai like drops out midway through their first song because he can't keep
Mm.
up, and
Sunji,
he's
Sunji, not Dai, Sunji.
oh, I'm sorry, yes, Shunji.
Yeah.
He's extremely frustrated, and afterwards he goes and slurps down all that soup and eats all that food and everything, and then cut to the future
Yeah.
where he gives that talking head segment, and you're reassured as an audience member this is not the end for him.
Yeah.
He did the shonen anime thing and he ate a bunch of food in order to regain his power, and then now we jump into the future and we see, oh, he stuck with them 18 months, he played with them, and it was amazing for him. So that's I like the positioning of those talking heads
Yeah.
throughout the film. I think they're well selected.
Yeah. I also want to add that even though this is anime and my all right, I just not go into that. I just say that even though this is an anime film, I think that the structure and the presentation is very unanime like. It doesn't have like some of the usual trope that you see. Except maybe what you just said, like he just whooping the whole thing. That's the anime thing to do. They joke about like how big dice you know body part, whatever that
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
But apart from that, though, I think like the story wise and the way it present is not like your usual anime films,
Oh
which
yeah.
is what I really like about the films.
Yeah, it's about adults. All three. It's a very male-oriented film, I would say. All three main characters are
Yep.
guys, and it's action-driven. The action is about self-improvement and musical performance, but nevertheless, there is a lot of action to the film. A lot of things are being done and
Performances.
accomplished, and it's not exactly a character piece. There's some good character work in there, especially for
Yep.
Yukinori's character, who has to be broken down and built back up.
I Yeah, I think that the show. Sorry, I think the film that does a good job of these three characters because we see them, with distinctive personality, and there's always a place for them to grow as well, especially for Yukinori and Sunji. So we don't see that often in Dai. It's more of like a figure that inspire others players. But we got a neat, development from both the other two players.
Yeah,
So I'm good with that.
yeah. Dai he's larger than life.
Yep.
With only, I mean, that's why when he first auditions to, because the way that Yukinori handles his proposition that they form a band is he says, all right, you go ahead and play with me, and I'll play the piano, you play along with me, and we'll see whether you have what it takes to join a band with me. And Dai says, don't need your piano playing, you'll know
Mm.
after I play whether you want to be in a band with me or not.
Yep.
So like right from the jump, Dai is just incredible. And after he does audition for Yukinori, Yukinori's like, "All right, go home. I've heard enough. I'll call you."
Mhm.
And then he cries in the club, he crying in the
Did he?
club.
All right.
It's
Yeah.
because it's I guess it's a club, a jazz club. It's more of a bar, but he like just thinking about how much he would have had to practice in 3 years
Yeah.
to reach that level, starting from zero as a 15-year
Mhm.
old, just like is overwhelming to him emotionally,
Yeah.
which tells you a lot about like Dai's spirit and his resolve. He's just more than human, really.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there are parts, of course, of the film where the band is struggling or there are conflicts, interpersonal conflicts between its members, and one of the best ones is the scene that you were alluding to before when the three of them are at Dai's apartment. Or I'm sorry, I keep wanting to say Dai because it's such a simple name to pronounce. They're at Yukinori's apartment, and this is after he has gone to see the programming director of So Blue, and he is botched it completely. He's burned the
Yep.
bridge, he thinks, for them to ever perform there. And he's completely down on himself. And he agrees that he is just completely lacking in creative spark. His playing is boring. This is one part of the film where Dai's like superhuman status is kind of challenged because he rather bluntly says to Shunji, "Let's just go. There's nothing we can do." And Shunji rightfully points out, "Why are you being so cold to Yukinori when he's hit a wall? When you're so like accepting of my mistakes?
Mhm.
If I suck as a drummer and I'm nowhere close to as good as you guys, why Dai do you want to play with me so much, and why are you so forgiving of all my hundreds of errors every time we play
Yep.
a live show?" And that just that realization from Shunji causes him to get upset. Like he
Yep.
understands that Dai has been treating him with kid gloves. He knows that's not fair, and it highlights in his mind his own shortcomings and his failures. So that was a very nicely engineered conflict, I think, where all three of them, are on bad terms. All three of them are on bad terms with the other two
Yep.
for their own reasons that have to do with like where they are in their careers, I guess, or their experiences as jazz musicians.
Yep. Yep.
It's kind of hard to watch, actually.
Mm, I think that was some really nice conflict, and that is something that I yeah we don't really get the explanation of from the Suplu guy. I think his name is Peter or PT or something
I
like that.
wrote
Like
I
I don't
wrote it.
have
Oh, Tyra.
Tyler.
I
Yeah,
wrote his name
Tyler.
down somewhere and I just found it. Yeah.
Yeah. We don't really get any explanation of why he said that to Yukinori, or whether this is like something that he truly think about the young man, or is that just something that to pump Yukinori to like to uh what they I try to remember the exact word, to go inside, to yeah, to push himself above the limit. But there was some other phrase that they
Like
used in there.
introspection.
Yeah, in like to really go dig deep into himself to explore that. So
Yeah.
yeah, something along that line. But yeah, we're not sure about his motivation when he say that to Yukinori, and I also enjoy that ambiguity as well.
Okay. Well, I was about to offer perhaps some clarity as to why he said that. Having seen the film
Yep.
twice,
All
I
right.
think I know a little bit. But if you enjoyed the ambiguity of it, maybe I should just hold
No, no,
off
no,
on it.
just go on. Because there was a conversation between him and I where they shed a bit of light on that, but they not really like directly say about that as well. So yep, I'm open to
Having the
um
magic ruined, the ambiguity.
nope. I'm open to hear your thought about that.
All right.
Well,
Well, my thoughts. I mean, I remember a lot of what Taida said when they had that meeting at the bar. I think
yep.
the name of the bar was Joy.
All right.
What the way that Tyra criticizes him, he has specific criticisms. Like, for example, when Yukinori came in, he kind of brushed off the bartender. The bartender says, "What can I get for you?" And Yukinori doesn't, not even looking at him, says, "Anything is fine."
Yep.
He also introduces himself as Sawabe, which is his last name. He doesn't address Tyra with his full name.
All right.
And the way that he approached him by going through an intermediary and sending him like 5 emails, I think that
Yep.
also rubbed Tyra the wrong way.
All right.
And I mean, he says these things when he's criticizing Yukinori's not only his playing but his attitude, like his demeanor.
Mm.
But musically, what he doesn't like about Yukinori's playing is that it's stale, it's boring. And specifically, he mentions you use too many finger techniques. And there is, of the forms, like four-ish performance scenes, there is one where Yukinori's solo. This is after Jazz. This is, I think, I guess it's the one where they're playing at the festival. They're not playing at So Blue yet. They're playing
Yep, yep,
at
yep.
a festival, and specifically in that scene, which is the I think that's the performance where Tyra is in the audience and he's listening. Yukinori's performance does use a lot of finger techniques. Like he goes on a lot of runs, single note, quick runs, ascending chord progressions all up and down the piano. I shouldn't say chord progressions. It's just he's running individual notes on chords. And he's not really like pounding away. There's not a lot of energy to the performance the way that there
Mhm.
is in the very first performance that he has with Dai when they're kind of egging each other on,
Yep,
and Yukinori's playing on the piano. He's really pounding on it, and he even loses his balance on the piano seat at one
yep,
point, and
yep,
it leans back on its two legs, and he has to slam back down. And you hear Dai right before he comes back in with the sax scream, "Yeah!"
yep.
Like he's really hyped up at Yukinori's playing. Um, the solo that we get after that, the one that Tyra watched, I think was a lot more subdued and a lot more. I think the implication is that he played a lot more safely because he was worried about what the rep from So Blue in the audience was thinking,
Yep.
and he didn't. Tyra in the audience did not appreciate that. He thought that the performance he gave was just completely lacking in any creative spark, and he told him so.
Mhm. Yep. Yep. I think that also put in the fact that when he tried to come to Tyler, he kind of ignored one of the the old man when the old man approached him for a signature for
That's
autograph.
right. And he later
So
in the film he
yeah,
stands outside he has, what does he have, a tofu business,
yeah,
right?
tofu. Yep, yep,
Yeah, and he stands outside and waits until he's done like churning the tofu, I guess, and then
yep,
approaches him, offers him the signed poster and apologizes.
yep, yep. That was really nice touch. So all right, talking about the visual now. How do you like the visual in Blue
Amazing.
Giant? Yeah.
Amazing.
All right.
Just so incredible. Of course, that there's the thorny issue of the CG. Um, I can completely forgive it, honestly. Like musical performance is harder to
Mhm.
capture in animation than even like uh, you know, martial arts. It's
Yep.
it's just so difficult to capture how a person interacts with their instrument and the way that their body moves, specifically because there's a hard rhythm to it. Like
Mm.
as
Yep.
you, the audience member, are listening to a song, you immediately get a sense of what the rhythm is. Even if you're not trained in music, even if you're not a very musical person, rhythm is like hardwired in our brains as a species. And
Yep.
it's really hard to animate around that because you animate on like 24 frames per second and divisions thereof, whereas rhythm is far, far, far more complex. It can be anything.
Yep. Yep.
So I totally forgive the CG, and of course, the warped, uh, visuals when like Dai is playing his saxophone and it's like blue monochrome. And this is the performance at the very end when Yukinori has checked himself out of the hospital
Mhm.
and Dai's playing his sax solo, and like you can see the mouth of the sax like wiggling and like coming alive. Like the saxophone is
Yep. Yep.
melting
Yep.
and
Yep.
trying to escape its own body. Like just little touches like that. There are so many of them and so many different different, like when Yukinori is pressing down on a key on the piano and it bursts into color and the whole frame is like warping, like he's bending time as he's putting all of his soul into a single note. It's just amazing. I can't get enough of it.
Yep. Well, I'm a bit mixed about that, but I do totally agree with all these, like inspiration. It's just a bit inconsistent to see that it jumped from, like from very excellence to, like a bit jarring with the CG from one scene to the next. But and it happened like that for the whole performances. But
Yeah.
then again, like you said, I know about the limitation of of doing having to animate the whole performances. So I'm kind of like kind of yes, that this is a really good production of this film.
Yeah. I think it's amazing. Um, some of the scenes where like um, the camera will start inside the body of the saxophone with little drops of moisture flying across the
Yep,
screen, and then the
yep,
camera
yep,
like
yep.
pulls itself out, and you like there are little flashes of color and light along the sides as you get closer to the opening of the
Mhm.
sax where light is starting to filter in, and then
Yep.
it pulls out and you see Dai playing. Is just like that. You gotta be really creative to even
Yep.
conceptualize a shot like that as a storyboard artist or as a director.
Yep.
Let's put the camera inside the instrument. Like what? That's crazy. That's
Yep.
crazy to attempt. And yet I whenever the film like really goes for broke in that way, I think it looks great. Yeah, I
Yep.
mean having to come down from those highs down to CG. I mean,
Hmm.
it's unfortunate. I in a perfect world, um, we would have automated pretty much all jobs on Earth, and everyone would be free to pursue their passions, and there would be 10 times as many animators in Japan as there are right now, and we
Yep.
wouldn't need CG for this movie because we'd have a whole bunch of ex Ghibli guys on it, and and they
Yep.
would like study footage of sax players for a year before they even started animating, and it would be the best looking film of all time, and every film would be incredible. But we
Yep.
have not yet
Yep.
achieved that existence for ourselves.
Yep. Underwork, underpay animators. So
Yeah.
you know, good job out there on this, and the music performances. Oh my God, it's just so great. Is it are they all original music?
Yes, the four main performances are all original compositions in this film.
Damn,
Yeah.
wow,
There are
they did a really good job.
some songs that play as part of I guess I wouldn't say they're not part of the score, but they're part of the soundtrack.
Yeah.
For example, when Dai is on the bus into Tokyo, you see that he cues up a song by John Coltrane, which I think is called Inspiration. Let me see if
Hmm.
Impressions. I'm sorry. It's a live cut on a John Coltrane album, and Coltrane is somebody who I've listened to a little bit, but I haven't listened to um,
That
the
particular
album that
song,
has Impressions on it.
I see.
But you when you hear it come on, you know. I mean, Coltrane is arguably the greatest jazz saxophonist who ever lived. So I know his general sound from hearing it.
Hmm.
So there are existing jazz pieces that kind of sit within the body of the film, but as for what Jazz the band plays, those are original compositions, and it's really important that they are because that's Yukinori's other great love, apart from performance, is arrangement and composition.
Yep.
And that's what
Yep.
Dai tells him during that post credit scene. Like I love your music.
Yep.
Actually, I think what he says is I love your piano playing, doesn't he?
I love your piano playing. I think. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting that he pays him. I think now that I think about it, I think he does say I love your piano or I love your piano playing. And it's interesting that what he gives him a compliment for is his performance when what Yukinori will now go on to do as he is one-handed from now on will probably be compose and arrange.
Damn. Yep.
But Dai respects him more, it seems, as a player, as a jazz player. So
Mm.
I think that says something about Dai. Like he's not willing to compromise at all. It's
Yep.
performance only for him. I think he probably does compliment Yukinori's compositional skills at some other point in the film, but that's not the note that it ends on, which is
Yep.
interesting to think about.
Yep. 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 But he very critical of Yukinori when he see that Yukinori doesn't really uh, doing much when he doing the solo, doesn't really improvise. He be critical about that. So that is like, he say what he think.
Yeah, that scene on the train, right?
Yep.
When there's
Yep.
that tension between the two of them kind of cropping up for the first time. I mean,
Mm,
there's always tension between those two characters. They're kind of opposites, but
yep.
specifically about like Yukinori's playing, as you said,
Yep.
his safe solos.
Yep.
That's the first time that crops up in the script, I think. And there's the story
So
that Yukinori gives on that same train ride about the girl who took piano lessons at his house because his mom was a piano
oh
teacher,
yeah.
and she
I
appears in the audience at the end,
yeah
which is very awesome.
yeah. I think that scene is a bit weird because we don't get to know about them much, but based on the flashback, um we can figure out that this was the girl.
Yeah,
I would love to see more scene from her though.
maybe there's more in the manga. You know,
Yep. I think so. Yep.
it's possible.
I think there's a lot going on in the manga that like that this film is just hinted at. But I think on that front it does a really good job because it's know where to focus and it's only 2 hours long. So I think as far as the focus for this film goes, I kind of agree with majority of their decision.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, not having read the manga, it's hard to know exactly like whether what kind of choices the film was actually making, what it was having to sacrifice, what it was having to cut. But the end product, as far as the film adaptation goes, is quite good.
Yep.
And
Uh,
you know, in that perfect world that I was talking about before, perhaps we will get an adaptation of Blue Giant Supreme in the future.
mm,
I kind of doubt that
oh,
it'll ever happen, but that's the
oh
next
my,
manga in the series, you know. So
yeah,
maybe someday.
yeah, yeah. Or maybe they're doing the principal and Mononoke stunts where they release these films every few years. I'm all for
I would
that.
honestly love that.
Yeah, true.
But you know, I kind of doubt that the director is the sort of person who would settle down for that because the director of this film is Yuzuru Tachikawa. He's the Mob Psycho 100 director who, for the third season of Mob Psycho, stepped aside um, as the director and let somebody else handle it because probably because he was working on this film, but he's also busied himself with other things. For example, he directed Death Billiards. He directed why am I blanking? Decadence. Now that I
Oh
think about
wow.
it, it was probably actually Decadence that he was working on when he stepped aside for Mob Psycho season 3. So it's not like he got attached to a particular franchise and then kept doing it over and over. He seems like he's got a lot of different stuff that he wants to say and
Yep.
won't let himself be pinned down um, to
Yep.
even the franchise like Blue Giant. But
Yep. Good.
I can't tell the future. Who knows what'll happen?
Good for him. Good for him.
I'm also I'm looking at I have my anime list open
Hmm.
for all three of these films because it provides a quick way for me to glance at the characters' names. I'm looking at the reviews for Blue Giant. 27 positive, 0 mixed, 0 negative.
Hmm. So that just tells us that the one who watched the movies really love it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. It doesn't necessarily mean that the film is great. What it means is the sort of people who would seek it out were
Yep.
impressed by it.
Yep. So
You know,
it's
if
a
you multiplied its audience share by a factor of 10 overnight, of course, those review numbers would not stay the same.
yep. And guess what? It's a thumb up for me as well. It's a unrecommended from Mario.
Yep. All right, I would also give it a recommendation. Yeah, I think anybody who's interested in anime or jazz
Music,
should
jazz.
watch it. Yeah, music at
Yep.
large even. Though there are
Yep.
plenty of music fans who are not into jazz
Yep.
and they really should try it. Like you've got um, if you want to go old school, you've got Miles Davis, Charles Mingus, John Coltrane, Ornette Coleman, Cannonball Adderley. But if there's also the new school of jazz musicians, you've got like Kamasi Washington, you've got Bad Bad Not Good,
Hmm.
you've got groups like Sons of Kemet, and uh, I mean, there's plenty of other styles of jazz from other countries, like non-Western countries, that I have not explored very much at all. All of that, there's probably tons and tons of great performances. I know Brazilian jazz is really big. Um, you got to try it out. You can't just ignore it. It's part
All
of
right,
it's part of music, like modern music's DNA. It's
all right,
where, like rock and funk and soul and hip hop have all evolved from.
yep.
Jazz preceded
All
all of that.
all right. What Cooper said, guys, and try out some of these album from the artists that Cooper just mentioned. Do it now.
Yeah, do it now and leave a comment after you have.
Right, I'm gonna pick one, and I'm gonna try to listen as well.
You've watched Kids on the Slope, right?
I want Kids on the Slope. Yeah,
Do you remember its like signature song? Do 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 do.
I remember their opening song, but
Yeah.
I don't think it's just
Oh, you're talking about the OP, like the opening theme.
the OP. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
But yeah,
I would say that Kids on the Slope has a signature jazz song. It's the one that the first piece that you ever see the main duo play together, and it's called "Moanin'" by Art Blakey, and he
okay.
is like a legendary jazz drummer.
Mm,
He didn't write the song "Moanin'," but his performance of the song, along with his band, the Jazz Messengers, is the most popular version of the song,
mm,
and that's in Kids on the Slope. So, I mean, I would recommend that as a starting point. Honestly, it's an instantly recognizable earworm. The little piano lick that kicks it off.
mm. All right, all right. So we move on to the next one, The Boy and the Heron.
Sure. So potentially the last
Yeah,
ever film of arguably the greatest anime director of all time.
but Whooper beg to differ because he had another theory going on while watching these movies.
Yeah, so I'll just say what it is right now and get it out of the way
Yep, let's
before
do
I
that.
forget. And that is um, the okay. Now I have to pull up my notes to remember what all these people are called. It's the Tower Master, right? That's the name of the elderly mage in this other realm
All right,
that
yep, yep.
Mahito visits. I think he's called the Tower Master. When the Tower Master is explaining to Mahito like what he does, how he keeps this other world in order, he references 13 stones that he has to keep balanced.
Hmm, yep.
Hayao Miyazaki, with the release of The Boy and the Heron, has directed 12 feature films.
Oh,
So
all
he's
right.
missing his 13th. Because to me, it's clear that the Tower Master is a stand in for Miyazaki in this movie.
Hmm. The
He's
old man
old.
who.
He's about to retire. He needs to find his successor. He's he's the one responsible for sustaining the existence of this other world. And in my mind, this other world being like
Ghibli.
uh, not not Ghibli necessarily, because not all of Miyazaki's films have been under the Ghibli umbrella, but the idea of like a world that's unbound by reality, that's based on total creative freedom,
Hmm.
a world where you're you create the rules as somebody who decides what they are. It seems to me that he is Miyazaki, the Tower Master. And so if he has 13 stones, where's the 13th movie?
All right. Hmm. It's kind of interesting to like he see himself as a villain here in these films because I
Would you
think
call the Tower Master a villain?
he kind of is right. Like towards the end, Mahito and Himi kind of try to doesn't follow what he want to do.
Right. Mahito doesn't want to become his successor. The
Yeah.
whole reason I think for the events of this entire movie, or the majority of them, once Mahito's family, he and his father move into this like countryside estate, and the
Mm,
Heron starts getting involved, and the tower's presence is explained. Once all that starts happening, the reason for all of that is because the Tower Master needs a successor, and it needs to be someone in his bloodline, as he explains to Mahito.
yep.
So the whole reason that Mahito is drawn into the tower, and the reason why his aunt, who is about to become his new mother, Natsuko, right? Her name is Natsuko. The reason why she is drawn into the tower is as bait, essentially, to get him to come into the tower. So in that
Mm,
sense, the Tower Master is a villain. But at the same time, his motivation is not to like destroy Natsuko or Mahito. It's to
maintain.
convince Mahito to succeed him.
Yep. 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 Boy, I
I mean, this film can most of the analysis that I've seen surrounding this film, and I've read very little because I don't want to pollute my brain with too many ideas that didn't start there. But I did read some analysis, especially before the North American release of the film. Most
yep.
people read it as like an allegory for Miyazaki's life and his thoughts on his past films and his relationship with his son and Ghibli and Isao Takahata and stuff like that. Most people read
Wow.
it as like metatextually, a story about stories that he has told over the course of his life.
All right. I do think that they kind of reading too much into that, because this is kind of like, like the film from the one and only Hayao Miyazaki, so they kind of like overanalyze that. Uh, I All right, especially for the point that you just made, which I kind of see it. The point where he wanted to meditate against his son and against the other members of Ghibli. I just don't see that at all.
Where he wanted to what against his son and the other members of Ghibli?
Uh, just the meditation, like you said, like his relationship with his son and with other members of Ghibli that is spread throughout the movies. I just don't see that at all.
Ah, okay. Like you don't think that any of the characters or events are like metaphors for that sort of stuff?
No, I think it's just a bit of a bridge to make that kind of connection here in these films.
Yeah, that could be. I mean, that's most
But
of what I've seen people commenting. So I have some of those
yeah,
ideas as well. Some of those,
right.
I share some of those opinions too.
Mm,
But of course, there has been a documentary about this film.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I can't remember what it's called.
Miyazaki and the Miyazaki and the Heron.
That's right. Miyazaki and the Heron. Yeah, and I mean the actual title of the film is translates to "How do you live?"
Hmm.
It's like "Kimitachi do iruka ka" or something along those lines. I don't have it up in front of me.
Yeah.
But originally, when I saw that they had changed the title, that they had localized it, I was like, "No, that sucks." But now, having watched it, the title "How Do You Live" is the title of a book, which served to inspire Miyazaki in the making of this film. And this
Hmm.
movie is nothing like the book. Like hardly any of the
Yep.
events match up at all. And of course, once Mahito goes into the other world, once he enters the tower, it departs completely from that
Yep.
book, which is not a fantasy at all.
Yep.
So now I like that they changed the title because this film bears very little resemblance to the novel that inspired it. So for it to share a name with the novel as it does in Japanese actually does not make much sense to me.
Yep.
So one of the benefits, I guess, of localization in this case.
Yeah. I agree. But I just feel, like some of these the plot are pretty bit weird as well. Like we start at the very beginning where Mahito had to come up with the fact that like he grieving for the death of his mother. He not be able to save her mother from like from the fire, and They proceeds into the fact that his father marries the sister of his mother. It just kind of it just so Japanese.
Well, if I could push back against that a little bit, I think there was probably a decent amount of that going on, given the like due to the war.
Right.
I
All
think
right.
that
Can you?
people, like
Can,
Japan knew that it had to repopulate,
I see. Right.
and I think people probably like took that order or that mandate, whether it came down from the emperor or whether that was just part of the like the national consciousness at the time. Like we need not to give up. Essentially, we have to like struggle on, and we have to have more babies because we're gonna need them. Um,
Hmm. All right.
I don't know. I think people took that to heart, and some marriages within extended families probably happened.
All right.
I mean, throughout history, those have not been uncommon. Now, this
I
movie,
agree.
of course,
Yep.
takes place in the mid 20th century, so that in our minds is kind of modern, but still, I think there may be a reason for why it was going on.
All right. Hmm. Yep.
It is still kind of weird to think about. Um, and in fact, you can tell that Mahito really doesn't approve. Actually, so the film opens up with the fire in the hospital
Hmm.
at the hospital, and the animation where it looks like people are melting,
Yep.
not in the hospital, but just people alongside the road as Mahito is running towards the hospital. All the people around him, like the crowds that he has to push through and everything. The people are like the dimensions of their faces and their bodies are constantly shifting in really kind of frightening ways, like a
Yep.
child might perceive them, when he's in fear for the life of his mother. Those scenes were animated by Shinya Ohira, who is my favorite animator ever. He always, in every Ghibli film, he makes some sort of contribution. In most of them, his work is cleaned up by, probably, if I had to guess, by Miyazaki himself, so that it loses a
Hmm.
little bit of its edge. In this film, it was left untouched, and I just love
Yep.
it.
Hmm.
Um, I
Yep.
don't know if you remember all the way back to the Genius Party discussion that we did,
Yep.
but Shinya Ohiro is was the animator on Wan Wan the Doggy.
All right. I don't recall that at all. All
Okay,
right.
I thought maybe that might like trigger your memory because you were not a fan of Wan Wan the Doggy, and I was like constantly praising it. But that's Shinya Ohira. He's just nobody's art looks like his anywhere in the world.
All right.
Anyway, the reason I brought up the fire scene is because after the fire scene, of course, we get the title screen when the boy in the heron comes up in big letters. That happens at 2 minutes and 40 seconds. For the next 14 minutes, Mahito does not say anything.
Oh,
He
right.
doesn't say anything when they arrive in the countryside. He doesn't say anything when he meets Natsuko. He doesn't say anything during the tour of the house that she gives him. He doesn't say
Hmm.
anything when she takes him up to his room and offers to bring back tea. He is completely silent the entire time. So you can tell from his 14 minutes of silence, he's not really that enthusiastic about his aunt being his new mother.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
That's yeah. That's a good way to put it. And even that sequence where we have he purposely try to hurt himself.
yeah, I think,
That withdraw from him from the films from Ghibli.
yeah. Uh, Yeah, I mean, when I first watched the film, and this was my second time watching it in preparation for this discussion. The first time I watched it was in theaters. I went by
Hmm.
myself because even though I have friends in the area who are into Ghibli films, our schedules didn't line up, and I
Yep.
didn't want to miss the film in theater, so I just went by myself.
All right.
And I remember at the conclusion of the film, I was like struggling to keep up with it the first time I watched it. So
Oh.
I was not moved at all. I was like, this is weird. My experience with it was similar to my experience with Howl's Moving Castle, which I didn't
Hmm.
really like very much. So for this film, I was like, I'm not sure how to feel about it. But me sitting alone in the movie theater, of course, there are people around all around me, but I didn't come with anyone. I I don't look, but I can hear the person next to me crying when the
Ooh.
film concludes. You know, when they emerge from the tunnel and all the parakeets turn back into their regular like normal Earth Earth sizes, so they're no
Hmm.
longer the weird parakeets in the tower. And there's the little reunion between Natsuko and Mahito and the father.
Hmm.
Somebody next to me is like sniffling it and crying, and I'm sitting over here like not emotionally moved at all.
Yeah. All right.
um, I don't know why I just brought that up. What?
No, I share your sentiment on this one because I do feel that it's get a bit not overwhelming, but it's get a bit confusing at the end.
Yeah.
Uh, there's some points within the movies that I'm not sure that I get it. It just move a bit way too quickly, and the first half is a bit too long as well. So I would say that it's the common reception for the people who watch it the first time.
Mm, okay. Yeah, I mean, I did like it better on second viewing, but even then, I was still like, I'm not really. When I watch Princess Mononoke, for example, I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm on the adventure with the characters. You know, when I watch Spirited Away,
Mm-hmm.
uh, I want Chihiro to reclaim her name. I'm like, I'm behind her 110%. Every like frightening experience she has, or every little tiny victory that she is able to grasp in her quest to return home, I'm like, yes, we're making progress. Or oh no, that's spooky. Are we gonna be able to get home? When I watch this film, I'm just studying it, like like I'm a movie
Yep.
critic or some shit. Oh yes, I see. So this could relate to this part of Hayao Miyazaki's career where he was working on this film, and this is a commentary on this other thing. So I mean, it's probably just my brain's fault
Right.
that I don't
But
exactly love it.
yeah, when it get into the fantasy world though, we get to see a lot of like other other sequences where I just feel that it kind of like fragmented, but it actually also really interesting on like how he like process all that, like the character Lady Himi, for example. I think she turned out to be like my favorite characters out of the whole movies. Uh,
Interesting.
and we see like her young self, where like she kind of do her own things. She have like her own kind of like ritual, and Mahito just kind of swept up in it and just like kind of uh, assist her to do the task as well. I think that remain my favorite section out of the whole fantasy.
Wait a second.
Segment.
When you
Yep.
say Lady Hime, you're talking about Kiriko, right?
All right. Sorry, it's Kiriko. Yep. Sorry.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. When you
Kiriko.
started talking about him helping her to like do
Yep.
whatever she
Yep.
was
Yep.
doing.
Yep.
I assume you're talking about like the
Sorry,
gutting of the fish and
Kiriko.
everything.
Yep. 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 Yep.
Okay. I mean, Lady Hime's cool too, but that's his mom. So,
Yep. Sorry.
and Kiriko, of course, is a much younger version of one of the seven uh, maids, I
Servant.
suppose they are,
Yep.
who live and work at the estate where Mahito and his father go to live midway through the war.
Yep.
Um, So that is. I even wondered, like when the maids first came on screen, I saw there were seven of them, and I wondered if that was somehow a reference to Snow White and the Seven Dwarves.
Hmm.
since they're
Yeah.
the women are they're older and they're kind of hunched over, like to make them shorter like dwarves, and there are seven of them, and um, I don't know. I'm just looking for connections all over the place. But Miyazaki has stated his dislike of um,
Disney.
Disney films. Although I think maybe that only extends as far as like modern Disney movies. I'm sure that he was inspired by early Disney works. Pretty much
Mm.
every animator on the planet has been.
Yep. 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 I agree.
So it could be that the seven maids are a reference to the seven dwarves somehow. But Kiriko is definitely the best. Even before you go into the tower, she's the one who's like trying to angle to get cigarettes from Mahito by being like,
Yep.
I know where a real bow and arrow is if you want to shoot one.
Yep. It's fun to watch.
Yep. Um, yes, she is. I don't know. She might be my favorite character. I might agree with you on that.
Yep.
I did like Lady Himi though. I mean, it feels like we don't get enough time with her.
I
Um,
agree. Yes.
but I think if we had gotten too much time with her, the mother son connection would have been too clear. And I mean, you don't have to pay close attention to figure that out. That she's the mom. You get that pretty quickly. But if then after it's made clear the characters spend too much time together, then you want there to be some distance and some separation between them, because they have to be separated for her to go back farther in time and become his mother and give birth to him. Like they can't fully connect as mother and son in the world of the tower, because then
Yep.
it's too painful for her to part with him and go back to give birth to him. Some
Yep.
distance is necessary there, I feel. Whether the film achieved the right balance, I don't know. But they can't,
Apparently, some.
they can't become best buds.
Yep. Apparently, someone sobbed after like the end of the movie. So I think for some of them, the film did a right job. For
Yeah,
me, though, I feel a bit underwhelmed by the whole experience.
I think I would agree. I mean, I love the way the film looks. So the experience
Yep.
of watching it, because
Yep.
it's not too long, right? It's about 2 hours. Let's see, 2 hours 3 minutes. Yeah,
Yep.
pretty much the same length as Blue Giant.
Yep.
It feels longer, of course,
Yep. Yep.
but
It
I
does.
don't like 2 hours in the modern landscape of film, where like a lot of films are pushing past 2 hours on a regular basis. Two
Yep.
hours for me is I can handle that, and it just looks so beautiful at every single moment as well. So
I agree. Yep. What do you make of the man eating parakeets?
the what about the parakeets?
The man eating.
Oh, the man-eating parakeets. Yeah,
Yep.
that the fact that they're introduced so late, because I would say that if the film has villains, it's the parakeets.
Right.
But they're more, they're the threat they pose. While they are highly organized and very dangerous, the threat that they pose is not as personal as
Yep.
the threat that the Tower Master poses, due to
Yep.
his hope for Mahito to succeed him. In the end,
Mm.
the Tower Master is like, okay, you don't want to be my successor, that's fine.
Yep.
Right up
Yep.
until the tower collapses, because the Parakeet King tries to put it together. He's like, "Come on, Mahito, do it." But then he, when Mahito refuses, he's like, "Okay, well, I guess you've refused. You got to go back to the corridor of time and get back to your own time period."
Yep.
That was a little strange to me. Like he arranged
Yep.
this whole thing so Mahito could be a successor, but then at the very end, he's like, "Oh, all right. Well, I'm not going to chain you up or anything." But as for the parakeets, so they I think are the main like antagonistic force, but they're not. The Parakeet King is, there's like a little bit of dialogue about how they are kind of bargaining with the Tower Master in order to gain as much power for themselves. Like they want leverage in order to negotiate with him. There's a scene where
Hmm.
the Parakeet King and the Tower Master like walk off side by side, discussing
Yep.
I don't know the relationship between their two factions or something.
Hmm.
Um, it's just a little hard for me to grasp what exactly the parakeets want apart from I don't know more power and authority in this
Yep.
in this world and to eat Mahito and Himi. Um,
Yep.
I mean I like the look of them. I think they're really like the blank little stares that they have and uh, the two henchmen who follow the parakeet king around and are like yes men and agree with everything he says. Those two are really fun
Yep.
and I don't know.
Yep.
I don't
They're
exactly
just
know what I think of them. They didn't leave a strong impression on me.
yeah. I think the cute design also mean that you don't really take them seriously. So they kind of like doing mischievous stuff. And that involves like trying to eat our main characters, but you don't really think of them as like the main threat, at least not for me. I just feel them kind of like a goofy fun to watch and maybe sometimes dangerous, but not the last boss quality by any means.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Miyazaki's films are kind of known for not having a last
Yeah.
boss type
Yeah.
character. So that was
Yeah.
probably an intentional decision. I
Yeah.
do have a question for you. See if you can help me refresh my memory. Do you
Yeah.
remember how Mahito escapes from the house where the parakeets, like he goes into the house knowing that there are parakeets inside? Or perhaps, no, I think, is it Lady
Oh.
Himi's house that he enters and the parakeets are there waiting for him and he like willingly
Yep.
walks in there?
Yep. So the thing is, the Heron uh try to uh, he take attention from the parakeets, so that
Right.
like all the parakeets are gone to out for like capturing the herons. So that's when Mahito sneak in. But I think there was like some of the parakeets still staying there, so he been captured, and from what I remember, he been saved but by Himi, Lady Himi.
Yeah, that's what I remember too. And they like jump through fire
And
and kind of
yeah, jump to
teleport to her
fryer.
house.
Yep,
But
to her kitchen to
right,
be
and he has the bread with the butter and the jam on it,
yep.
like a classic Ghibli eating scene. But how
I
does
agree.
she get into the house when he's surrounded by all those parakeets? I don't even remember.
I think she went by the fire as well, because she can transport from one fire to the other.
Do you actually
I don't
see her
remember.
come in through the fireplace or
I don't think so. I think she just appear out of the blue. But
okay.
right at that moment, I don't think I can recall correctly
Okay.
distinctively what happened. Yeah, I
It just
remember the thing come after that and before that.
right. Yeah, me too, it seems.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that may be part of the issue with the parakeets that we both seem to be experiencing is that they're not a big enough threat, I guess.
Yep.
Whenever they have
Yep.
Mahito cornered, whether it be this scene that we're talking about or the scene where Mahito wakes up from his initial dream of the Tower
Oh
Master,
yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
he's chained up, and there's a parakeet there who's like sharpening his knife on a grindstone
Hmm.
and the heron just comes in and goes bop boop bop and frees him, and then they both climb up the tower. Uh, Whenever Mahito is surrounded or captured or whatever in this way, he just gets out of danger. He has like a get out of jail free card whenever the
Yep.
parakeets have him in their
Yep.
clutches. So it doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't. They don't feel too threatening, I guess, as a result.
Yep. Yep. I agree. But there's some good throwback to the old Ghibli as well. I really like the doors, the multiple doors that open to the multiple worlds. That I think they have that in how they have that in how moving castle.
In Howl's Moving Castle, I think it's a single door, right? But there's like a little thing above it,
Yep.
like some
That
sort of
change to
wheel above it or something.
yep.
Where,
That
yeah,
that change to four different locations.
yeah. All the doors in
Uh,
this one actually reminded me of Monsters Inc.
all right.
The Tower Master calls
Interesting.
it the corridor of time. And there's like a little cheat code midway through the film when the parakeets are, I think it's the parakeets, they're coming down the hall and
Yeah.
Mahito and Himi need to hide. So what they do is they go through one of the door that leads to Mahito's world, but they just keep
Yep.
their hand on the door handle.
Yep.
And by doing so,
Cheeky.
they don't plant
Just
themselves
what?
back in the real world. They're able to come back through the door just because they kept their hand on it after the
Yep.
parakeets had walked past, which is like that's cheating.
Cheeky.
Yeah, that's not allowed. I that's too simple. Uh, but it works out.
Yep. So yep. So all I can say is after the first watch, and I watch it right. When we see it's available online. So kind of like a month or 2 months ago. A bit underwhelming of the whole experience, but I think it might improve after the second watch, which I don't plan to watch anytime soon.
Hmm. All right. Oh,
how how
a
how
fir-
how you feeling after the second time watching it?
I mean, I liked it more the second time. It
Yeah,
improved in my eyes. So who knows? Maybe if I watch it again, it'll
yeah,
leapfrog some other Ghibli films on my like if I were to make a ranking. I think that's something a lot of animation fans have probably done is like make a tier list of Ghibli
yeah,
movies.
yeah.
For me, Boy and the Heron is pretty close to the bottom, but
Oh, right.
yeah, I mean, I would say so. Well, let
Hmm.
me clarify. If we're talking about Miyazaki films, it's pretty close to the bottom.
All
Of
right.
course, there is one other Ghibli film that we have watched for this podcast and reviewed. Do you remember which one it is?
Uh. All right. That's an interesting question. No. The Tale of Princess Kaguya.
Nope.
All right. No. Sorry.
Ocean Waves.
All right. Yeah. Ocean Wave. Yep.
That is in the bottom tier of my Ghibli tier list.
Yep. I can see that. Have you watched Ewick and the Witch?
No, I have not.
All right.
I'm not sure that I
Uh,
ever will, honestly.
do you don't you want to finish all the cheapy films?
The next Ghibli film I watched, so the only ones I haven't seen, I suppose, other than Earwig the Witch, are uh, the Tales from Earthsea, Tales of
Right.
Earthsea, and
That's,
The Cat Returns.
all right.
I've seen everything else by
And that
all directors.
yeah. And this Tale of Sea and Ewick are both from Miyazaki-san's.
Right. Though, I mean, Goro also directed From Up on Poppy Hill, which I
Yep.
would say is like pretty solid Ghibli.
Yep. Uh, yep.
So, I mean, I'm sure Miyazaki had a major hand in it, but I have read the first Earthsea book, which is called Oversea Under Stone in like Ursula Le Guin's fantasy series.
Mhm.
Um, so I know a little bit about it, but I don't know. Like maybe I should watch Tales from Earthsea before I read the rest of those books, so that it doesn't ruin the image that I create in my head after reading
All right.
them. I don't know.
All
Um,
right.
anyway,
I all right. I think this is unpopular opinion, but I watch everything from Goro except for Tale of Sea. So I watch from Up on Puppy Hill. I watch Ewick. I watch Roncha, Ronia, the robber daughter.
hmm
I totally enjoy all of his movies. So
did you say you have seen Earwig and you enjoyed it?
I enjoy it. I enjoy
Okay.
it well enough. I just don't really like the ending where it's left a bit open, but other than that, I enjoy the experience, man. I
Okay.
just I
Well, I
enjoy
mean,
it.
I did like Ronya the Robber's Daughter. In fact, if I remember correctly, I think it may have been me who encouraged you to watch it in the first
I
place.
I think so. Yes, yes,
Because
yes.
at that point we were thinking about like our top 50, series of the decade.
Yeah, yeah. So
So I
yeah,
yeah, I mean, I share with you an appreciation for some of his work, but Earwig, I don't know, man. Like it
why
doesn't.
not?
All I've seen is the poster, and the poster does not look good to me. Maybe someday.
All right, all right. So what about look back?
Should we move on to look back? All
Yep,
right.
let's move on to look
So I
back
have no notes for look back. I finished it just minutes before we hopped on Skype to record.
for the
Yes, we
first
still
time.
do use Skype for anyone listening and raising their eyebrows. Um, I really did enjoy this,
Right.
uh, but I'm not sure what I'm going to be able to say about it. I'll do my best.
All right.
How did you like it? Did you like it?
I did like it. The only I will tell first with the thing that I don't like because there are a lot of things that I like.
Okay.
I don't like the character design.
Mm,
I just feel that and even with his Chainsaw Man, I don't really into their design either. So I think it's just my problem with Tatsuki Fujimoto style.
yeah, he
Uh,
does. He does have an unorthodox character design philosophy.
yeah, what do you mean by philosophy?
Just
What do you
his
mean by
approach,
yeah,
like
yeah,
his approach to designing characters is very. I
yeah?
If I were to try to describe it, I would say that he tries to blend realism with an anime style, and that's really
I
brought
see.
out in this film. For example, the scene where Kyomoto and Fujino are we
Yep,
just calling her Kyo,
we can
the
call him.
the
Yep,
Hikikomori girl, Kyo?
yep, we can call her Kyo,
Okay.
right?
The scene where Fujino and Kyo are standing on either side of that tree after, you know, Kyo announces that she wants to go to art school and she won't be able to serve as Fujino's assistant, despite the fact that they've received this like serialization offer.
Yeah,
Um, the argument that they have, like when Fujino is denying Kyo's ability to socialize with other people or to work on her own, or and like saying art school is not important, it doesn't
yep,
mean you'll get better jobs. The way that that scene is animated is extremely lifelike. It definitely like belongs to the realist school of animation. In fact, it reminds me of, I don't know, like stuff from long ago, like Akira and the Hakenben,
I see.
works by animators who do not contribute to like modern anime series. They look completely different. The tilting of the characters' heads is totally like lifelike and reflective of the volume that their body contains.
Yep, yep,
I
yep, yep.
think that when Fujino designs characters, not Fujino, I'm sorry. Fujino is the name
Fuji.
of his name is Fujimoto.
Yep,
His character in Look Back is Fujino. When Fujimoto designs characters, I think what he's going for is sort of an expression of real life that has been flattened, as
yep.
opposed to creating like character design sheets where you see what the characters look like from all different angles as 2D images. I don't know
Right.
if I'm explaining that very well. I don't know if that's really how his mind works when he designs characters, but that's what this film called to mind for me. And even when I see his stuff on the page, that's how I think about his framing.
Yeah, I think flatten is a right word because I do feel that some of the expression was a bit flat at time, and it's kind of take me out of the pictures in these like important scenes. But yeah, apart from that,
I mean,
I
I think
think
the animation was there. There were a lot of montages, with still images,
yep,
but when the film was animated, I think it looked pretty excellent. The
I
walking
agree.
animation, the walk cycles were really, really good.
All right. I correct me if I'm wrong, but this is from Studio Durian, from the
Yes.
staff who make Flip Flappers.
I don't know how much staff it shares with Flip Flappers, but I
All
know
right.
Oshiyama, the director of Flip Flappers,
Yep.
was he directed this film, and in fact, he took on a lot of the creative burden himself.
Yep.
Maybe there is more staff overlap than just him.
All
I
right.
don't know.
I
I actually
love.
didn't look that up beforehand. I probably should have.
Yeah. I just love Flip Flapper uh to to pieces. So like the animation in look back in this film, it just on spot. And there are just so many decisions in regard to storytelling as well that I think they do it right, like the fact that it just focus on these two characters, and like through the passage of time, so we see them right at the beginning when there was like primary school,
Hmm.
until like go through the middle school where our main character Fujino, like out of like jealousies, like competitive trait. She tried to like push herself, and then she skip up just because when she see like the pictures of like all these drawing from the other girls, and she just try that even she just think that even if she try her best, she can never like measure up to uh Kyo art.
Yeah.
And then she just said she give up, and like it's just so brief, but it just so painful as well. It carry a lot of gravities, and then we see later on where she I see start to on that day she met Kyoto, and know how much her act mean uh to the girls, and that she just like kind of joy and just running around the world. It just like just full of emotion. It just so great.
Yeah, it really is because the film makes you wait for it. Because
Yep.
when Kyo, I mean, first of all, the idea that she draws that Yonkoma comic about the Hikikomori World Championships,
Yep. Yep.
where Kyo is dead inside her house, and that's
Yep.
the idea that that comic would slip under the door and like kick off their personal and professional relationship,
Yep.
um, is is so I don't know, is
Wish fulfillment. It's
no,
a
it's so
fantasy.
like I don't know, I don't know if wistful is the right word. It's so like entrancing.
Yep.
That idea, like just it's such a romantic idea. It's
Yep.
so um,
Yep.
it's like beautiful to think that two people would meet by coincidence that way. But at the
Yep.
same time that it makes you feel like it's something more than coincidence, like somehow magnetically or as a result of destiny that paper
I
slipped under the door because these two had to meet. Like there was no other way that their
all
lives
right.
could move forward.
I just feel that after that scene, I just feel that it just like a storytelling way, like of deliberately get them together. Like it's just a convenient way. So I say
Now,
to get them get to know each other, but that
we're not using the C word.
but this actually come down to the later part where like Fujino just experience grieving, and that we have like some of the scene that the other Kyo she just draw something, and that just slip back under the door as well. So it just kind of payback as well. So it totally worked for me.
Yeah, it's a nice storytelling device.
Yep.
But I think that in fiction, when like in real life, coincidences and conveniences are just the result of I don't know the rotation of the Earth and the choices that
Oh,
like a million different people have made in order to reach a particular set of circumstances. But in fiction, they can be beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think that's even just taken on its own, the paper slipping under the door originally, before we even understand that the film is going to double back to that to show us a different version of reality, a different timeline.
Yeah.
Um, Even that by itself, before any of that, is still beautiful to me,
Mm.
um, because it compels somebody who has been holed up in her room and who never would have come out otherwise,
Yep.
uh, to emerge
Yep.
and to geek out about, in the same way that the two of us are like big geeks. We've
Yep.
been talking about anime together for many years, because there's always something cool coming out to discuss. And in the mind of Kyo, who doesn't go to school and has all the free time in the world and is obsessed with manga, um, the cool thing that's coming out is that somebody her age in her grade is drawing these comics that she considers to be masterpieces, that she
Yep.
probably reads and like pores over and looks at every corner of every frame and studies them and laughs joyfully, when she gets to the punchline in the fourth panel of all these comics. Um, I think that's wonderful,
Yep.
and I really, just from the moment she first emerged and came out of the house, with her, like her long dark hair, and she's wearing that little, I can't remember what is that coat called, like a hakama or something like that. In Japanese,
Mm.
people often wear them in the winter to keep warm.
All right. Yep.
Um, and like her difficulty in making eye contact, and her little, she also has a bit of a lisp. Um,
A what? Sorry.
it's She has a bit of a
Lips.
lisp, like when
Yep.
she wants to pronounce the T in
All
some
right.
words, like for example watashi, meaning like that's a
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Japanese pronoun meaning
Yep.
me or myself. She kind of pronounces it wadashi.
Yeah.
And
All
I
right.
really, really, immediately upon hearing her speak, I was actually very emotional, because
Mm.
hearing that lisp in her voice immediately made me consider the possibilities of like bullying, and that
Right.
perhaps she had some sort of speech, issue when she was younger, and her
Yep.
classmates mocked her for it, or
Yep.
perhaps that speech issue is a result of the mockery in the first place. Like it somehow,
Yep.
it resulted from social stigmatism or trauma, even.
Yep.
I just really loved that detail. Immediately, like I was captured by that character.
Yep.
Um, so
And
whatever method the show or the film wants to use to get her out of her room and to experience, some of the wider world alongside her new friend and her idol, is okay by me.
yeah, and even the way she addressed Fujino Sensei,
Yeah.
like she really put her in high standard, and the way that they acknowledge each other's strength. Like Fujino is always about like stories more than the act, and Gil is more about you know excuse me, the background acts more than the actual story, and they actually acknowledge each other's strength, and that I think that get into their collaboration later on, where they decided to do many of the one shots before getting serialized.
Yeah. And that was actually exactly, Fujimoto's career path. He put out
Yeah.
a lot of one shots before his first serialization, which was Fire Punch.
Yeah.
Um, and even the what was it?
Shark
Shark
Man.
Kick, was that the name of the manga in Look Back?
Yeah, Shark or Mr. Shark or something. It's look exactly like Chainsaw Man.
Yeah. And in fact, in Chainsaw Man, I know I've read the Chainsaw Man manga, at least part 1. I know you've only, from
Yeah.
what I remember, you've only watched the anime.
Yeah.
There is a shark demon, the same
All
way that
right.
there's a chainsaw demon, and
Oh, I remember. I remember the Shark one. I think he come
that's
like
that's right. There is an episode where some of the other demons who will see more of in part 2 are introduced.
Yep, yep,
in
yep, yep,
the
yep.
in the anime. Yeah. So there is a shark demon. I think Fujimoto probably just really loves sharks. um, but yeah,
Yeah.
that's Shark
Um,
Kick or whatever it's called is you know, an homage to Chainsaw Man. I think Fujimoto probably put I mean the main character's name is Fujino, so I think he probably put a
yeah.
lot of himself into
Yeah.
this work. And,
Yeah.
you know, I doubt that the story as it unfolds, you know, with the death of Kyo is exactly what happened to him. I doubt he had an assistant, you know, in grade school who was
No.
helping him with everything.
Yeah.
But you know,
There's
perhaps
just some.
perhaps just generally he lost someone close to him, you know,
Yeah.
somewhere in his life, and this the writing of this series was a way for him to help, you know, make sense of that, to process it.
Yeah. Well, I certainly feel there's some, like really some nice personal touch. The ones like you said, like happened to his previous career. But I also like the fact that Fujino this time is actually a girl. We don't really see it at first either. Like on the when she was a primary school, I don't actually recognize that she was a girl until like way into the middle school. I think where she started to wear the uniform
Oh,
and
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even her first name, her given name, Ayumu, is not gender specific. That
No.
name can be for both men and women in Japan.
Are you me or are you Mu?
Ayumu. For
Oh,
example, there is an anime director named Ayumu Watanabe. He
yeah.
directed Children of the Sea and
Mm.
uh,
Yep. Yep.
After the
Yep.
Rain, Koi wa Ameagari, among other
Yep.
things. So yeah, it's a gender neutral name, and yeah, I mean the character design is kind of what are you not ambidextrous? What am I? What word am I looking for?
Unisex.
No, there's a word that starts with A.
Um,
Androgynous. For a second, I couldn't think of it. Androgynous meaning it could be like male or female.
mm. All
Kyo
right.
too. Kyo as well.
Yeah.
Kyo is.
Yeah.
I mean, despite her long hair, she is not. You know, her design is not overtly feminine.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the point. You know,
Yeah.
like the there's no like romance between the two. They're not the characters are not gendered in their design.
Yeah.
They're only given a gender as a as a consequence of that being part of I don't know our social organization of ourselves as human beings.
Mm.
But they themselves do not like occupy particular gender roles. They're
Yeah.
mangaka first, foremost, and only.
Yeah. Yeah. And and there's a lot of cut as well, like you say. There's a lot of montage, just showing they are like in the same position but working in a different time frame, especially when they like when they do the crawling. So just to make you see that there's like endless streak of the hours of and effort that they put into their manga,
Yeah,
and even the opening scene and the ending scene kind of start and end the same as well. Just the shot of Fujino in the back drawings.
yep,
I love that. And the we haven't get into the main message, the main catalyst where Fujino learned that Kyo had been uh, I want to use a nice word, but had been killed
yeah,
by a random serial killers. No, he's not a serial killer. He just kind of like mass murder everyone in
yep.
there.
Yeah, and I have to imagine. I mean, the one shot on which this film is based came out in 2021. The
Oh,
Kyoto Animation arson attack was just 2 years before that,
yeah, yeah,
and the depiction of the man with the axe, the axe like weapon. I guess it's
yeah,
like a pickaxe or something.
yeah,
Um, his grievance is that somebody stole his work. Somebody stole his
yeah,
idea.
yeah, yeah,
Not an anime studio, but like an exhibit that this art college had put on,
mm,
where Kyo is, where she goes to
attending.
school, and
Yep,
he thinks that somebody stole his idea, and so he, is not in his right mind, I guess, and
yep,
Kyo
yep,
dies as a result. She was just in the way.
yep,
Um, so I'm guessing that the KyoAni arson was probably, you know, something that was weighing on Fujimoto's mind. I think the sort of people who, draw manga or create anime, if you're in any sort of creative field, then when people who, make the sort of stuff that comes out of your same industry, when they are affected by a tragedy like that, it's got to hit way closer to
yep,
home.
yep,
Um,
yep.
so yeah, it's quite sad. It's devastating
Mm.
the way that
But
plays out. So it's nice that the film gives you a glimpse at how things might have unfolded differently.
yeah, but the film is not actually about that, but about how Fujino just try to go through the process of grieving and at the end moving on, despite acknowledge the fact that like maybe of the best person, the best collaborative person who understand her, who fond of her, has been gone, but you know she just keep growing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and she
Oh
does it
man.
with the Yonkoma comic taped to the window above her workstation. And I really like
Yep.
the touch that you can't see the panels,
Yep.
because I think the
Yep.
implication is that what she has taped up there is Kyo's work from the other timeline.
Mm. Yep.
That's why we're
Yep.
not allowed to see the panels, because they don't truly, or I should say, maybe there's a question as to whether or not they really exist.
Yep. Yep. Oh god, so very emotional. Really good adaptation. I think the show I think the film just do a lot of things right, both in like visually and story wise. um like I said, I don't really fun of the character design at first, but even the characters, the main character Fujino is like very snobbish at first, but totally relatable. And yeah, this is just 1 hour mark, but just the right length as well. Doesn't
I
seem to be rushing, doesn't seem to be too short. All right,
I would have
you want to
liked
say something?
more.
Yeah.
You know,
All right.
I would have liked the. I mean, the film relies on montage so
Yep.
much, and I just would have liked more. More conversations between the two of them as they're working, more of a lead up to Kyo's decision to go to art school,
Mm.
especially.
Mm. Yep.
Um,
Yep.
more detail perhaps in Fujino's serialization, where you get those shots of the rankings of the different manga in Shonen
Yep.
Jump,
Yep.
and her the little arrow that tracks the popularity of Shark Kick or whatever it's called
Yep.
is, I shouldn't say arrow, it's a line on a graph. It's going up and down. We don't get to feel those ups and downs really. We just watch that graph play itself out, and we see volumes of the manga being
Yep.
added to her shelf. That's
Yep.
it. You
Yep.
know, I just feel like there's more. There's more story to tell here, and of course, it's
Mm.
based on a one-shot manga, so those montages are, accurate, I assume, to the source material and respect the decisions that Fujimoto made in paneling out that story.
Mhm.
And so there's nothing wrong with that. But I just,
I
as an experience watching an hour-long film, I could have used 20 more minutes. Let's say that's what I would have
Yeah.
wanted.
Well, I'm a bit mixed about that. Like I totally see what you just meant as well, but at the same time, there's just a nice flow of passing of time. So when they was like a primary school, when they are in the middle school, when they get to know each other, working with each other until one of them decide to go to college. So by concentrating in this one moment, I feel that the flow can be a bit um, disrupted at times. But I can totally see your point as well. I would love to see more from them. But maybe one of the good thing about that is just end about enough that you still wanting for more, and it
Yeah.
tell the story. It tell its arc. All right, like very emotional. So you know,
Yeah, and the fact that we get less time with Kyo before her death is,
yeah,
I mean, it probably
yeah,
just makes it hit harder. Like
yeah,
the
sure,
fact that there are things about her choices to go to art school and about her history before, before we meet her, why, what caused her to withdraw from the world and to stay locked up in her house, and what is her family situation, and
yeah,
there's so many questions unanswered, that, and we never get the answer because in addition to her death, like removing her from the world, and from Fujino's life, it also removes the possibility of us learning, more
more about
about
her.
her because
Yeah,
the film from that point moves into a different reality, one where she, her artistic gift, of course, cannot, even if she didn't meet Fujino as a young girl, she was still a very gifted artist, and she was always going to want an outlet to express that. So she ended up in art school regardless.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
And yes, that's true. Because speaking of that, we never get to see Kyo's parents at all.
yep.
Like even though that Fujino came to her house twice. The second one maybe not really, but uh, and never seen their parents at the home at all.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think it can be inferred that they both work and that they probably neglect their daughter. Um, Not around to spend much time with her.
Yep.
And I'm
All
sure
right.
that contributes in a big way to her decision not to go to school because if your parents are not around and encouraging you to go to school, then why would you want to? I mean,
Mm,
certainly there are things to do at school that children like. You get to see your friends first of all, and then there's also recess. You also get the guarantee of food because there's lunch served there,
mm,
and there are classes that you might prefer, classes that you like, more than others. There are reasons why kids might want to go, but if you don't have a parent or parents in your life saying, "All right, time to get up for school," then there would be a lot of kids who would just decide it's not for me.
yep. Yep. All right. Really short and sweet and very emotional story for me. I think out of the three, this might be my favorite.
Mm, okay. I mean, I would have to say Blue Giant is my favorite, but I
Yep.
did quite enjoy Look Back.
Yep. Enjoy.
Uh, yeah, it's very touching. The montages, even though I wish they'd been fleshed out, still had beautiful piano music behind them,
Yep.
some high pitched vocal tracks. Like a little bit of, I don't know what I would call that style exactly. It's not whining. It's I don't know, just the voice. Whoever was singing, that very very lilting voice, not a lot of shape to it, mostly just tone, and
Right.
it was very, very very pretty. Some strings in there as well. So the montages always uh, sustained themselves very nicely due to those musical decisions, and beautiful beautiful animation. Just the running scene
Mhm.
where Fujino goes home after hearing from Kyo like all this praise, calling her Fujino Sensei, her telling the lie about having a work that she wanted. The reason she stopped drawing the stories was because she was preparing a work to enter a contest,
Mhm. Yeah.
and like she walks home, and then she starts skipping on that wintry road, and
Yeah.
then there's that shot of her. I don't know if you call it a fisheye shot necessarily, but it's her like running towards the camera from one angle, and then the camera pans a little bit, and she gets close, then starts running in the other
Oh. Yep.
direction. I'm
Yep.
sure
Yep.
you
Yep.
can call that shot to mind. Unbelievable animation
Yep.
in that
Yep.
shot. The skill that it takes to draw with that sort of perspective is like very few people can do it.
Yep. Yep.
Um, so I was blown away by that scene. Um, Also,
Yep.
of particular note, I think this film is there are some of the best uh long far
Shot.
away shots
Yeah.
that manage to keep the shape of their subject.
Right. Yep.
Oftentimes, because in anime, most of the time characters have the line art is black.
Yep.
It
Yep. Yep.
surrounds the character. And so when you try to depict a person or a vehicle or whatever from a long distance as it's moving, it's tough to do because the
Mhm.
black outline leaves less space for the color and the shape of the subject within that line art. But in this film, uh, during those like long shots, they rather than using black line art, they use line art that matches whatever color is being depicted, like that borders it on the inside of the shape.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
And there were just several examples. I didn't take screen caps of them, but I wish I had because there was some real dedication to keeping shapes solid, even when the camera
Yep.
was far away from them.
I agree. Yep.
Something that I have not seen in very much anime at all from any time period. So
Yep.
very impressed by that as well.
I just think that the animation here in this film is top notch. It's just one of the best.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And that's
Yep.
honestly that's probably the reason for some of the montage is that even though this film is only an hour long, you get the sense that a lot of the effort that went into it was concentrated in
Yep.
specific places, and
Yep.
the
Yep.
montage is like the animators all like flopping down from exhaustion and being like, let's just put some still images on screen because we're about to die over here.
No, I think it still work for me. Like seeing them, like go through all the efforts, the characters, and like there's just sort of like some really small changes in the shot that you can see the progress itself. So still work for me. I still enjoy the montage very much.
Yeah, they do work. I
Yeah,
have I have my issues with them, but there's no denying that they're effective. And I think the reception to this film is also proof of that
oh,
because
yeah.
people love
I
it.
think it's overwhelming positive
Yeah.
more than yeah more than I think I had anticipated as well. But
Well,
well,
Fujimoto is like, the king right now.
yeah, mm,
Even if people are not as hot on Chainsaw Man Part 2 as they were on Part 1,
yeah,
um, people always wait. Like Goodbye Airy, which is a one shot that he released, I believe, last year in 2023,
right,
like took the internet by storm. Um,
huh,
People
right,
still recognize him as the number one artsiest, but also most like populist, I guess,
mm,
um, mangaka like in the shonen field right now. He's the person that he's like the Kendrick Lamar
all
of
right,
like Kendrick recently had an album drop, so I'm going to use that as a point of
all right,
comparison.
yeah,
Fujimoto is kind of like the Kendrick Lamar of shonen manga right now because not only does he have the hits, but
yeah,
people are also looking to him to provide some real substance whenever he puts anything out.
all right. Oshiyama, the directors, on the other hand, is the king for me. Like I'm really looking forward to all of his stuff.
Yeah, Shishigari when? That's
Yeah,
a that's a
no
you
idea.
know about Shishigari? Have you seen the trailer
I
for it?
know, I yes, and nothing else.
Yeah, I'm really
Yeah,
that's if I had to name like 15 or so anime that I was looking forward to that could come out at any point in the future, Shishigari would definitely be on that list because yeah,
yeah,
Oshiyama is just such an intriguing creative force in anime.
yeah,
His like if you go on AnyDB and look at his page, his
yeah,
work as a director is so sparse, but he has been on so many amazing works as like a mechanical designer
yeah,
or an animator for like one episode of a series or uh, just weird stuff. Like he has his fingers in a whole bunch of different pies because people probably want to work with him. But as
yeah,
far as the work that he's been allowed to headline, there's very little of it.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so it's nice,
I
that he got to head this up.
I really hope that this one kicks off. His so people more noticing him, and maybe he got the finance for like his other stuff or the passion project that he want to get made.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, Shishigari, with the success of this film, probably just got a lot more likely to
Yeah.
release. Like it could have just disappeared forever, but this film being a success means that there's a higher chance that it'll come out now.
Oh,
And Studio Durian as
the
well. Their
right.
name being attached to this means that perhaps it will become the
The
sort of place where, what like when Studio Mappa was first founded, a lot of
yeah.
Madhouse employees and other people from disparate corners of the industry kind of came together to work on some of those shows. For example, Shinichiro Watanabe.
Yeah.
Kids on the Slope, I think, was Mappa's first full length TV series. So people like their name had a lot of cachet around it, and it was a
Yeah.
place where like artsier creators and the sort of animators who wanted to work on their projects might go. Durian might become that sort of place with the release of this film. We'll see.
Yeah, hopefully. The weird thing is now I'm looking up at my anime list for Shishigari, and apparently it's been released in 2019, and with
No,
as
that
a 16 minute
16,
long.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't. From what I understand, that 16-minute version of Shishigari is like a work in progress type
right.
thing.
Mm,
I don't think that was actually a 16-minute short film. I could be wrong, but that's what I
yeah,
understand.
yeah,
Um, and I think Oshiyama's goal still is a feature film with
yeah,
Shishigari. But I don't, it's not like I know the guy, so who knows what we'll get in the future.
yeah.
Hopefully,
But
more from
uh,
him in some form.
but we have to look back.
Yes, yes, we do.
So yeah. Oh man, what a movie. All right. Do you have any closing thought? Closing statement at all? Booper for this film and for the three films that we just watched.
I guess if I were to deliver a closing thought, it would be that I mean, there's plenty of other anime films that came out this year. It's not just these three. It's not just Mononoke, which we mentioned earlier, but The Imaginary, the Studio
Yep.
Ponok film by an ex Ghibli director,
Yep.
came out this
Mm-hmm.
year. It is now available on Ya. The
Yep.
Concierge, about the woman
Yep.
who works at like a hotel for animals. That is also out
Mm-hmm.
on Ya with English subtitles like The Imaginary. The Haikyuu movie came out this year. Naoko Yamada's Garden of Remembrance came out this year. Maboroshi, the Mari Okada film, also came out this year, and she has another project coming out next year, I think. And there's tons of great anime features on the horizon as well.
Mm-hmm.
There's one by the guy who did Ongaku. There's the Odd Taxi duo who are currently working on an animated film. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's just honestly, I think it's a great time to be a fan of both anime and cinema because
Yep.
there's cool animated films coming out all the time.
Yep.
And I think 2025 and 26 are going to continue that trend. I'm hopeful.
Cool. And that doesn't discount like all these films, all these serial films. that we mentioned at the beginning of our podcast.
Right. The girls in Panzers and Princess Principals and stuff. Yeah. There's all
Yep,
there and like the space battleship Yamato remake,
yep,
31 they're up to 31.99 now. That also comes out from time to time. Those are typically released in theaters first before they make their way onto the internet. There's that
right.
too. And there's just so much anime coming out, you know. And
Yep,
while it's true that not all of it is good, I'm finding, you know, it, we're like there's always something. There's always something cool that
and
is being like the trailer is being released or it's being released on the internet or we're learning more about something that might come out in the future. There's like reason for optimism, you know.
yep, and even like these three films that we just talked about, Blue Giant, Look Back, and The Boy and the Heron, would approve. They always, they are these films that try to push the boundary as well. So not only good film but great ones.
Yep. Yeah, I would say I'm pretty happy with all three of these films on the whole.
Yeah,
Even you know even the Boy and the Heron still enjoyed the experience of watching it. Beautiful to look at, fun to
yeah,
think about.
yeah.
Um, yeah, it's good time to be an anime fan and a fan of movies too.
All right, all right. So that's bring us up to 2 hour mark and the end of our podcast.
Yeah, what's next? When will the people hear from us next, Mario?
That's gonna be the top 10 anime of this year 2024, and that would be in beginning of January.
Yes, sir. It's
Let's
coming
do
up
that.
fast.
Yep,
Are
yep.
you marathoning stuff?
About to.
You
That's gonna
better
be
hurry
a lot of
up.
stuff. Yep, there's gonna be a lot of stuff to watch.
Yes. So as Mario said, that's going to be at the start of January. That's a little over a month from now. So I
Yep.
guess we will see you then.
All right. Bye for now, guys.
See ya.